Hello, hello, ladies and gentlemen, witches and wizards, goblins and ghouls, families and friends. Thank you for joining us on Nom Watch Review, a division of Nom Talk Network, where we discuss the latest movie or a great movie with a milestone, why we actually partake in delicious treats. Forgive me. Today, I am eating some delicious pizza. I can't guarantee that's New York style, and having a shameless Coca-Cola as usual, while we are discussing the movie, the myth, the legend, Godfather. Today, I have two excellent guests that are here with me that are going to discuss the show. I'm going to introduce you to them. Rob, hello, hello.
How's it going on, brother?
Good, pretty good, buddy. What are you joining and what are you eating? What are you having with us today?
I am enjoying a nice Lagavulin with a proper whiskey cube, as is tradition. Nice on the rocks.
Excellent, right on. Sounds like that is a drink from or nectar of the gods. Regardless, it sounds dang yummy. And Derrick.
Hey guys,
today, my friend?
I'm doing well. Hold on.
Yeah,
Give
no
me,
problem.
Give me a second. I have.
It's okay. Having a little technical difficulties. I totally
no,
understand.
actually, I was gonna show my drink, and then I realized I had spilled it all over my laptop.
No.
While we're filming here, so my laptop is now drinking more than I have. But I have a wonderful protein shake in here. Yeah, it's not that fancy. And then I'm actually eating some rice and shrimp with some peppers that I air fried. So
that also sounds filled with protein too, as well.
Yeah, not no alcohol, unfortunately.
No worries. I am sorry to hear about the current possible.
I know. I'm so sorry, guys. I'm trying to
this is no. Make sure that laptop is safe. Do not worry about that.
It's a brand new one too, because I have to give back all my work ones.
Jeez. So while you are handling that, Rob, could you please start us off how you are familiar with The Godfather? How were you introduced to this movie?
So when you grow up in an Italian family, there's certain movies that you are shown to show, hey, this is how Italians are in our community. This happens to be one of those movies. You are taught your heritage. You're taught, okay, hey, this is why we are such a close-knit family. It's because of dynamics like this. It's because it's a way to present a view of the past. And with the Italian heritage, we were very much in this nouveau wave of immigrants of, hey, we don't trust you. You guys are just thieves. You guys are coming here. Which is why movies like The Godfather were so critical to us, because that's how the Italian community was. We couldn't go to the police. We had to go within. Hey, we have a dispute. You, sir, have a place of authority. We need you to settle this dispute one way or another. And it's just it's ingrained in us.
Now, question in regards to, because it seems like you have a lot of in regards to the foundation, or your introduction seems very warm with the film. Who introduced you to the film? Was it somebody in your family, a friend, or?
Yeah, it was my dad sitting me down. It was very much hey, you're old enough to watch this. We're going to sit down. We're going to show you Godfather. And then it was, okay, we're going to show you Godfather 2. And that's, okay, we're going to skip Godfather 3 because Godfather 3 doesn't exist. And we're going to show you Goodfellas.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay.
I've converted him. He knows now.
Okay, see, Derrick. Now it looks like you're. Is the laptop okay right now, buddy?
No, I think we're good. I think
okay, good. Dude, I'm stressing for you because honestly, I had to adjust my tie, dude. Because when it comes to any form of electronics, especially nowadays, we don't need broken equipment at all, my friend. I know. Talking about let's talk about less broken things like this excellent film. How were you introduced to it, Derrick? How was your introduction to the?
It's so funny because I'm actually not. I don't really remember the first time I ever saw The Godfather. I feel like it has literally just always been a part of my film canon. I've always loved movies, even before I was doing film criticism and stuff like that. And I am very partial to the gangster genre. I just very much enjoy gangster films, and even bad ones. Like I love Hoodlum, and Hoodlum is a horrible gangster movie. It's a horrible gangster movie.
Awful.
No, it's absolutely awful. But I
that smile of acknowledgement both of you gave.
No.
It's one of those movies when you're drunk at 1 a.m. and you put it on just because you want something to laugh at before you go to sleep.
Hoodlum, huh? Hoodlum. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
But I am genuinely just a fan of the genre, and I feel like you can't be a fan of the gangster mafia genre if you have at least not seen The Godfather more than once. Like, you absolutely have to have it somewhere in your film canon in order for you to appreciate anything that's come after it. So somewhere along the line, I watched it, and it was probably pretty early on. Like, I was probably too young to even understand why this movie was good. So I've obviously returned to it many times, but
yeah.
I also, like, I still have it, by the way. But I managed to steal a book from my 8th grade library that is called, it's called Blood Letters and Bad Men. And it's basically an encyclopedia of every notorious criminal up until this time that this book was published. So it's literally a mafia encyclopedia. And I have been obsessed with it. I've kept it for years. I was 8th grade. I'm 38 years old now. Like, I've had this book for so long, but
looking good for 38 for the record, sir.
That's right. Thank you.
I'm fairly certain your library's calling you. They're saying you owe about 10 grand worth of overdue library fees.
That's fantastic, though. Like, well, not that we don't promote theft, but that was dedication, man. That we call that dedication. That's what we call it.
Yeah, but it did. It very much influenced my knowledge of, like, the actual mafioso crime drama and, like, the crimes and the notable people. And so I've just always been obsessed with not just the real life antics of, mafia and organized crime, but how it translates into film. I think is just brilliant, and I think there are so many great examples of that. And it all starts with The Godfather. It really does. I mean, you want to talk about how influential this film is, which I know we're going to do, but, like, just fun little fact, prior to The Godfather, there were only 98 films that were based on organized crime in any fashion. After The Godfather, there have been 430, an average of 10 every single year since The Godfather. Like, this is the pinnacle of the entire genre. It's absolutely astounding. So
it's, oh my god, on that, to segue into introduction in general in regards to my introduction to the film, dude, you're 100% correct. It was funny because I was looking up on, I think it was like a old insert from Ask Jeeves back in the day, trailing onto a constant Google concept.
Wow, when
going
Jeeves
into an
was
internet
still
search.
around.
Dude, and I trailed it back because I was curious to see it because so supposedly it was IMDb sponsored when they were Yahoo sponsored. And I was like, dang, this is kind of going down into the web of entertainment. And they mentioned something about a obnoxious 226% increase in mafia films on the release of The Godfather because of that foundation being something that's consistent or a classic tale, which, I think I should be like an advertisement to TNT by now, because my introduction to The Godfather, once again, was the Turner Network television show. I was watching it a little pieces by pieces as it actually inserted things here and there. And honestly, my introduction was of the gun down scene in the center of the bus station.
Great scene.
And I didn't start it all the way through. I just sat down. I was like, cool, classic car. And I was like, cool, police officer. What is he doing? And then all of a sudden, just a hail of bullets. And young me was like, I don't know whether I should be terrified or enamored. This is like crazy,
Yeah.
So,
a little bit of both. A little bit of both.
Exactly. So the introduction was a little bit of traumatizing at first, but it was seeing what was happening in front of you. I was a big action film fan at the time being. So when it came to the concepts, it was always about Predator. It was always about Terminator. It was always about, Jean-Claude Van, Double Take, all these concepts that were the classic, karate action packed, blood, guts, anything. But then, you see something similar and then a follow-up scene actually being decent dialogue. And it threw me off. I was like, all right, maybe I should watch the rest of it. So that, honestly, that was kind of just my introduction to it in the first place. So actually talking about introduction, and I want to go ahead and start off with Derrick, because you mentioned a good little point earlier about the story. To me, before we go into the story, I see a classic tale of tales already, in a concept of you have a hero or morally questionable hero, which I'll go into later. But Derrick, please, your opinion of the storyline, what in regards to The Godfather, how do you feel about it? What is your opinion? What's your vibe on it?
Yeah, so I think that this movie is so revolutionary for a lot of reasons, not just because of the genre that it exists in, but it also does something that I think a lot of people give a criticism for, but I don't think they realize how influential it is. And that is dropping us into a world without any frame of reference. That is not something that happens very often. It happens a lot more now, but I think a lot of people, before we kind of took that and started implementing it in a bunch of different ways, that is one of those things that I think really sets The Godfather apart. And one of my absolute favorite Family Guy jokes is when Peter Griffin says he doesn't like The Godfather because it insists upon itself. And then he never explains what that means. But the more I've thought about it and the more I kind of think about how you frame that and what it actually means, I think it really is this. It's this idea that this story just starts. Like, their lives are already full. There's no origin story at the very beginning. Like, we have no idea what's going on. It's literally, we get dropped into this gigantic Italian wedding, and the film just assumes that we are supposed to know all of these people. We're supposed to know who Vito Corleone is. We're supposed to know all of this stuff. Just
the traditional concepts of going of weddings. Yeah, totally.
Like, we're supposed to know all of these moving parts, and the way that it drops you into this and then slowly but surely starts to unpack each individual person without ever giving any kind of exposition dump, without ever giving you a character that is literally there to recite plots. Everybody is there to, like, basically give you this window into this existing, flourishing world. And to me, that is just, it's unheard of storytelling at the time. But then when you start to look at, kind of the way that movies have transitioned and how they've gone, another great example of a movie that really does insist upon itself, we just don't give it a lot of credit because we're so ingrained in the lore overall. But Star Wars is very much like that. When you really look at A New Hope drops you into a world that exists. And if you saw A New Hope for the first time when it came out in theaters, you had no idea what was going on until Han Solo shows up. Like, everybody is so just like, no, this is the world. This is the galaxy. This is everything that happens. And you're like, I don't know any of these people. I don't know what's happening. And then Han Solo shows up and he's like, guys, it's cool. There are real humans here. Roll with it. Yeah, it's all silly. It's all silly. And then you're like, oh, okay, I can get on board with this. And so you just see, when you talk about story-wise and you talk about that story development, this movie does things that I think a lot of people take for granted when it comes to how it explains the story. And then, sorry, the last point is,
no, you're good.
When you start getting into, like, when you talk about that scene that you saw where you just watch this guy get gunned down out of nowhere. One of the things I think the story does really well is once it lets you off the hook, once it kind of gets past this wedding and it breaks through into, like, the characters and the pieces, it is so engaging and so enthralling. And because it doesn't tell you all these individual pieces, you are now, like, dead set on putting this puzzle together for the next 3 hours. And everything just keeps moving forward. And you're like, oh my God, who's that guy? What's this going to happen? And oh, okay, I know where this is going, but where's this going? And it's absolutely brilliant and sprawling and one of the best stories I think we've seen in a really, really long time.
And on that same funny, because that movie, the actual story for the script for that movie was sold before the book was even finished.
Yeah, that was my next question for you, Rob. There on that same question on the storyline, because I know you were mentioning the fact that you had, like, strong Italian ties, Italian family ties, and that it's a big foundation for you.
Oh yeah,
and the concept of like that does it, like, and on that concept of actually having that Italian heritage, does it, like, meet, like, what, like, family is about? Like, is that like
100%?
Is it because, like, I know some people claim things don't really hit the mark. So
no, 100%. Godfather is truly, when you talk about the family dynamics, not to dive deeper already into the film, we're talking like when they do the main scene with the actual guy who's coming in going, hey, I've got my drug connection, this, that, and the other. And when the son's like, Dad, we should, and the dad just looks at him. And it's just that brief look of disgust, like, what the fuck are you doing? I used one of my swear words. I've got two left. I got two left.
Good.
It's such a revealing thing, because even in Italian families, like, you're very much trained of, hey, no, you don't talk about what goes on inside the house with people who are outside the house. You keep that stuff with inside. You got a problem inside the house, you keep it inside the family. We don't, no, you don't share that stuff out. No, that stays within, and that's ingrained even now. Like, to this day, like, if I had talked when I was a kid, if I had talked about a problem with my grandparents would be like, what the hell are you doing? Why aren't you talking to your parents? Who have you told about this? Who didn't? And be like, whoa, I didn't tell anyone. Like, good. You're not supposed
Very
to tell
networked, very
anyone. It stays
consistently in the circle, right?
Because it stems back from a lot of the Italians coming to America. It stems from this sentiment of, hey, you have Italian immigrants coming, and they're seen as similar to the Irish. Hey, no, we can't trust you. You're criminals coming into the country. When it's like, whoa, they're just migrating here to try to search for a better life.
On that note, in regards to you talking about, let's say, you know, just being able to relate to it, a strong foundation, would you say, you know, with your heritage, would there be any negative association that the movie has created for Italians?
Yes.
Is it something that's like, you know, a
100%. As much as the, I think it was, what was it? The Italian group that boycotted the movie when it came to New York. The identity, you never see a movie where it's like, oh, it's a movie about an Italian accountant, or oh, it's a movie about an Italian real estate agent. No, the only time you ever see a character where they are exclusively, hey, no, that is an Italian guy, is, oh, he's a mobster.
Yes,
he's part of the mafia. It's the only time you ever see it.
Okay,
I think
that makes sense.
And on that note, Rob, I think it's very interesting because it is kind of a twofold thing that Hollywood does, right? Because those types of things have proven to be incredibly bankable, right? When you kind of fictionalize the stereotypes, they bring in money, and you see that all across the board. And I don't want to necessarily blame The Godfather for this, because I do think that a lot of other things have contributed to this, but like, you can look at it when you talk about Black culture and you talk about, you know, the way that Black films are portrayed. It's very rare that you see just a Black accountant. You just don't do that very often. And we're getting a little bit better, but for the most part, it's always the slave. They're always slaves. It's always
took a couple hundred years to do, but
or it's a civil rights,
yeah, right. You can never
exactly,
and you always have to attach a white savior to that. But that's a whole different podcast.
Really.
But you understand. I understand what you're saying, where it's like it's hard because yes, it represents some of the things that are very personal to a lot of them, and you know, when you kind of relate that to all the other types of immigrants and marginalized communities that get the spotlight in Hollywood, they tend to take the best and worst and then kind of meld them together. So you can look at it and be like, yeah, we are all in the family, but like, we're not all connected. Like, it's, you know what I mean? Like, exactly. We're not all in the mafia, even if we're all very much part of this family. So
exactly. And it becomes a double-edged sword, but at the same time, it's a great way to introduce people who aren't accustomed to that. Yeah. Like, I've had a lot of my friends whose families aren't that tight, but yet I'm 28 going on almost 30 here. And people don't understand the dynamic of like, I'm still close to my family. I still call my parents every day. And they're like, every day? And I'm like, yeah, no, it's if I don't call my mom at least once a day, she's sending out the police going, yeah, I need a wellness check on my son. He lives at this address.
Now, speaking of strong, so we don't digress too much though, but speaking of like the concept of like just strong Italian families on the film itself, just like in regards to most of the things we're looking at here, 1 second here, getting a little update in regards to comments here. Hello, fantastic. I am so sorry, Q. I am not ignoring messages. Sometimes get so zoned into what I love here. So Q said, today I watched all 3 of the films of The Godfather, and I know the subject is the first. So I know the subject is the first film. My rating is about 4 out of 5. The reason why the story drags out a little bit, but overall a good movie to watch on a boring Saturday night. That's a great point. Also, I'm getting ready to eat some spaghetti soon. Dude, I was just thinking, because like, even though I have some delicious pizza here, I'm like craving some like spaghetti and meatballs.
I've actually been, funny enough, I've been craving baked ziti for like the last 3 days, and I'm dying. I'm over here in Burbank, and I'm like, I'm ready to head over to Pinocchio's and go get me some baked ziti.
I know, right? And then also last one, he said in regards to what TNT stood for, Q said, fun fact, Ted Turner owned back in the day not only TNT, yes, oh, I love this fact, also TBS and the Weather Channel. And he also used
and don't forget CNN.
The Atlanta Braves. Yes, and Atlanta Braves. He was like, oh my God, he had a lot going on.
And don't forget WCW. We
True,
can
true.
We can twist this into a wrestling channel real quick.
We will not go into the reason why that failed, but so into another concept wise, I digress. But let's go on to the strong family ties. Rob, you were mentioning the concept of relating to the Italian family ties, and Derrick in regards to the Godfather setting the foundation to film. To me, you see a classic tale of a very, very gray moral hero. He starts off, being a Marine, I believe it's Marines, and he goes in to fight for his country, and he gets there, and it's like just the concept of, being the definition of a hometown hero. And, he is his father's like jewel, somebody that can't be corrupted, it seems, in the beginning. But he obviously knows what's going on with what's the family. He seems to be like, okay, cool. Yeah. I'm a good guy, but I'm like, hey, I know what's in the know. He's that person. That's that person. Don't cross that person or you're dead. So it wasn't like he was ignorant trying to play a golden boy, so to speak. But to me, it was a classic tale that I compare to the Odyssey. Concepts of, oh man, I can't even think of it right now, but the classic of, I don't want to say good versus evil, per se, just because it is more like the good versus evil on the inside as the individual character, I get.
It's more of a balancing act. Conflict, it's more so of, do I listen to my own moral code, or do I listen to the moral code of my ancestors before me telling me this is how things should be done and should be handled?
1,000%. And you see that development. Exactly.
Yeah.
And you see that development transition from the beginning of the film going to it. One thing I want to mention to you guys, because maybe I'm overthinking this too much, but there is one point in the middle of the film where he's talking, where Michael is talking to his love of his life after not seeing her for a year, because he, off the two individuals before, going on there. I'm just going to keep an individuals, just to keep it simple. But yes, Kate, on the way to, as he's walking, but could you tell, like, as that child says hi to him, it's a child on riding a bike, going on curiously, but there's a black dog that follows him immediately wise. And to me, I always think of the black dog as a symbol of like, hey, this is a transition portion of, from where he was carefree, childlike, Marine in the military to, this shadow, which happens to be his family, just possum like a classic black dog. Then again, it could have been a cute scene, but to me, I was like, that's a little, I don't know. But
it's a little on the nose. It's one of those things where you've got the kid representing him as a Marine, trying to stay on the straight and narrow, trying not to do what his father established. But then you've got this big black dog chasing you down, going, "No, I'm gonna get you."
No, totally.
Curious, Derrick, what are your thoughts, man?
Yeah, I was about to tell you, Derrick, because you mentioned earlier before, there has been, this film was used for film schools examples, definitions of studies, to actually go through. Is there any particular moments, other than, and I won't spoil, actually, I don't want to like spoil what you're about to release or anything, but is there any particular moments that really stick out to you most other than some of the classics?
There's a ton. I think in regards to characters and especially Michael Corleone, but I think even one of the things that I think really sets this film apart when you talk about journeys and you talk about kind of who these people are, it's amazing to me how complex all of them are, right? Because none of them are one thing ever, right? Because even Sonny, who is as typical as you can get, right? The guy is always out for blood. He's hot-tempered. He's kind of he's the stereotype of what you think all of these people should be, where his resolution is violence. That's what he wants. And so you see, one of the things I love about Vito Corleone, just in general, is you see this man who has all of these characteristics of his children. Right? Like you see it in Fredo, you see it in Michael Corleone, because you see the distinguishedness, right? You see the gentleman, you see the guy who is willing to solve problems and doesn't always resort to violence. Like the reason he is the Godfather is because he managed to do all of these things and attain all of this power. And that's why, all of the other families covet him so much. But he's done it through all of these dealings and all of these things where people are like, yeah, he's a criminal, but he's a very upstanding criminal and he helps the community. And so you kind of see all of his...
He has the moral high ground.
Yeah, right. But he also has a propensity for violence. And so when he doesn't get his way, he's got the Sonny in him, but then he also has this Michael Corleone in him where he doesn't necessarily want his whole family to be a part of this.
I never noticed that. That's an excellent point. I've never noticed that.
It's just, it's amazing to me because he fight even on even on his seeming deathbed, when, you know, obviously he makes it, but like, even when he clearly has no other option, he loathes the fact that Michael Corleone has to be the one to get it done.
Yep.
He can't stand it because it's never what he wanted. And then Michael Corleone is probably one of the all-time great protagonists of all stories. It's very
100%.
rare. It's very rare that you see a story that starts out with a good man and then you literally just watch his moral fall with every new scene.
It's that two-faced joke. It's either you die the hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
He definitely does that, and it's amazing to watch something like this happen. It's very rare that the redemption is the worst parts of you end up taking over and you become everything you swore that you wouldn't. And that is the actual conclusion. That is where we leave Michael Corleone. And even when we get into Godfather 2, which we're not really talking about, but like when you get there, he doubles down on all of the worst things that he wants.
Yeah.
Even though it's always under the guise of, hey, we're going to go legit. Right. No, it's still in the worst possible
you can tell,
way.
You can see that even here, right? You can see that even in The Godfather, where he really wants Kate to believe, and he wants himself to believe. I think the reason he kind of treats Kate the way that he does is because he is being ripped apart. Kate is what he wishes he could be. Kate is who he wishes he could be with. It's who he wants to be with. And he wants to provide a life for his family. And it's very, very important to him. But he also has his family that he is now the only person that can gear the head, because Sonny's dead and, Fredo is not capable, and he is the logical next step. And so that transition of just watching him go through that film from bad to worse or good to worse is just, it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
It's unseen by any other film in cinema. Think about it, really think about it. Like, you either get a bad guy who becomes worse or you get a good guy who becomes great, but you never really see a good man with a good heart. Hey, I'm trying to be better than what my family has taught me.
No, totally.
To then just be like, I can't escape my own destiny.
Yeah. Now, and then the transition, because I want to make sure we're not missing, some of these questions that we have over here. So, or actually statements. So Q says again, Al Pacino is perfect for the film. The way he talked, the way he walked, the way his character gave us to identify with his son, a husband, a brother, etc. I agree. Sorry, here scrolling down. I agree with from being a carefree to being a war hero to being at the top guy in his family, 100%. Like, in that regard too, as well. I was going to ask you, Rob, bringing up the concepts of Derrick. You've mentioned that it seems, Mr. Corleone, Marlon Brando himself, his character, has the resemblance or a mixture of both personalities that each son seems to have individually. So, Rob, would you say this could be an example of Sonny being the classic devil and Michael being the classic angel and a hot versus evil kind of concept? What was your opinion on that? How would you look at that?
100%. It's a multitude of things, right? So you've got Michael is obviously the eldest. So the eldest in Italian families, eldest is always the one who has to bear the responsibility. He's always got to be the one he can't be a hothead. You're not allowed to be, because you have to set the example for your younger sibling. Like isn't Michael the youngest? And
I was gonna say Michael.
He's the because it goes Fredo, Sonny, and then.
Oh yeah, you're right. It goes Fredo, Sonny. Yep, you're right.
Yeah, because that's the whole.
I understood. Yeah, I understood the point, but yeah.
But no, it's 100% that way, because if you look at Sonny is what all of Vito's worst fears. It's all of Vito's neuroses. It's all of everything Vito did not want to be, nor did he want the next head of the family to be, is Sonny. It's just anger, aggression, just pushing forward, versus Michael is everything he wanted the family to be. You take your time, you're patient, you wait for your moment, and then when your moment strikes, you go for the jugular. It's very much that dichotomy of Michael took all the lessons completely different than Sonny, but at the same time, he's like, I know where the BS lies and I don't want to be a part of it, but yet he's the only one who is sane enough to actually run the family to a point where it can still exist in a 10-year span.
Yeah,
totally. It's interesting to say that too as well, because given that I pretty much agree in this whole concept of it's hard because you want to say good and evil, but in reality, Sonny did have some redeeming qualities. Unfortunately, the way, in my opinion, like his death was almost a really effed up way to be an honorable death in this situation. You know, he was running to his sister's aid. He was running out there to, you know, go ahead and pretty much whoop somebody's derriere. I'm really tempted to say some other stuff, but you know, the concept of what's going on. So like he was the result of, you know, that death in a way. It's shitty, and it's more of a reveal of like, you know, be thoughtful more of your actions, like you're saying, more of a methodical concept of I also think of the term if we're thinking about how Michael like did his actions, how he represented himself as the head honcho. It's almost the term is like, don't aim a gun unless you intend to shoot it. You know, he never, in any way, shape, or form, if he had his sights on you, he'd hold it there. But nothing was implied until the action was about to happen.
It was actually more than that. So, like with Michael, he never wanted it. He never wanted it in a million years. If you saw the way he interacted in the beginning of the film, he's like, no, 100%. I don't want,
yes,
I don't want to be part of the
film concept, yeah.
Versus
yeah,
Sonny, versus Sonny. Mm-hmm. And when it comes to his death, Sonny's death is the epitome of just what would have been that early New York mafia overtaken New York style of death of, hey, all of a sudden this guy is just
Valentine's Day,
out of nowhere. Yeah, exactly. It's reaching back to our roots because Chicago, you're taught in modern Chicago history. So you're literally taught, hey, this is how the Valentine's Day massacre is brought out. They invited a bunch of people down and they just mowed them down.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because you see this thing of a hero not wanting to be who wants to be the hero, but just his whole history, his whole family and everything just drags him down to being the villain.
I think
it's such a fall from grace.
Yeah, I think too, one of the things that you see as kind of repeating and kind of mirroring storylines in the way that they kind of end is this whole idea that violence begets violence, right? Because you have Vito who only resorts to violence if it's absolutely necessary. He did not amass all of his power by just going out and doing the Sonny thing, right? So he understands that violence is a part of it, but he tries very hard to steer clear of that. And then once he is absolutely taken out of the picture and he can no longer manage that distance, what ends up happening is you see it with Sonny and Michael, because both of them are victims of the same type of thing, right? Because Sonny, his propensity for violence is what it inevitably gets him killed, right? Because his gut reaction is to, you know, run. Everybody knows it. He gets played like a fiddle for that. Because everybody knows, right? Everybody knows he's got this temper.
Salazzo even says it, like, look, we can't have this discussion with discussion with Sonny. Sonny's too much of a hothead.
So what ends up happening is his violence is what absolutely becomes his undoing. However, you actually see the same thing with Michael Corleone, because after Michael commits his act of violence and then goes off to Italy, violence is the thing that brings him home, because he thinks that he can have this normal life. He thinks that he can be a part of the violence and then just walk away. And we're reminded time and time again that you absolutely cannot do that. Once you cross the line and you use violence, there is no escape from it. And he thought flying to Italy was going to be the reason he could escape. He falls in love. He gets this, you know, he gets the dream life he's always wanted. He gets the dream life he's always wanted, and it ends in violence. Because he can never escape the violence now. And so
can we just take a moment to talk about the look on that guy's face as he's like looking away, and then just look at his eye? Can we talk about how brilliant
before we go there, I just want to make sure we don't cut off Derrick on that last point there, but like to make sure you're finished with that right there. We'll go into the because we'll go into the looking and go and talk, because we'll go in the acting to make a reference segue to. But I just want to make sure we didn't cut off the rest of your point, Derrick.
No, that was it. It just, you know, the violence is what sends him back, and I think that is the turning point. I know we always like to kind of reference the murder in the cafe, right? We assume that the murder in the restaurant is where it's the point of no return for him, but that's not it. That's the catalyst that incites the violence for the rest of his life. And what happens in Italy is now what drives him back to the family, because now he realizes that whatever he's done is never, ever going to change. He has now crossed the line into violence. It's now cost him the life he wanted. So now he absolutely has to go back and be a part of the violence forever. And it's so subtle, but you just see these things mirror it so well in ways that you just wouldn't think that they're complementary of each other. So yeah.
100%. And on, it's interesting that you go in, because we're going to segue into the acting concept. And Rob, I want to start with you right after this too, in regards to, please bring up the point in regards to the stare, the look, because we're going to go into segue into the acting at the moment. But yeah, speaking of that transition from the gray zone, the moral hero, going from what we think is, carefree life, possibility, having good concept and tendencies, to now being ultimately the godfather of his worst part of his family, his worst part of their lives. The jewel, the diamond of rough, now has became the subject to what we consider a crime mafia family, right? The acting, I'm not gonna lie, I can't seem to dog on this acting in any way, shape, or form. I mean, I can't get away from it.
It's flawless.
It's just, no, exactly. I mean, and immediately here, so we don't lose too much time, but going in the name, you got Al Pacino, Marlon Brando, Diane Keaton, Robert De Niro, James hold on one second, like Tyler Shire. I mean,
had to fight for him.
That was it.
Just for Marlon Brando.
Because that's the crazy thing. Regardless of that, just the cast together in this film is a definition of like something to follow. How the concepts of, because there are a lot of moments in which there's extreme acting, there is blood curdling screams, there is violence to the core, but there's moments in which silence is all it's needed, a stare, a look, a whisper, and it's still terrifying as hell. But that's what I want to transition over to. Rob, you mentioned something before in regards about a stare that got to you.
Yeah, no, it's just, there's so many. This movie could have easily been a 4-hour movie if it were not for just these subtle moments that took pages out, that you could not that are so much more captivating just seeing off the look. Like what Derrick was talking about right before his wife's car. Spoiler alert, obviously, if you're watching this, I'm sure you've probably seen the movie, but if you haven't, please watch this movie for this reason alone, is the look that befriends what is essentially his best friend, his confidant in Italy, going and essentially planting a bomb in the car of his newlywed bride. And you just see this look in there like, you know what you did, you know the life you've chosen, these are the consequences of your decisions. And it's all said through just this split second thing where you can look inside, you're like, he's doing it. He's oh my God, yeah, he's going. Or just the scene where they're talking about the drug dealing, and then the look of it, just disgust in his father's eyes when Sonny speaks up, like, the gall that you have to bring up business in front of someone who isn't part of the family, just a pure and utter disgust. Like, to this day, I can watch that scene and immediately I get this look in my stomach like, I need to call my dad and apologize for not telling him this thing that I did 10 years ago.
Oh man,
you can't help it because it's just it's so visceral. It applies to any mafia or mobster movie made after that first movie. It is applied to it since. You could look at Goodfellas. You get that same style of, hey, we can actually say a lot with just a look. Look at Fat Tony. Just literally the line in Godfather. Yeah, Fat Tony don't have to move for nobody. It's man. He just looks
like
at
less is more, right? Less is more.
Exactly. Yeah. Or even going back to like the photo scene in the beginning. No, we need to wait for Michael. And then someone goes to try to question him, and he's just like, and there's no.
No one moved an ounce. Yeah, that was a very good point. Acting wise, Derrick, is there any? I'd say there's a couple scenes, moments that really have stuck out to you. Now, I know there's hundreds, so please, by all means, if there's anything that sticks out the most, go right to it.
I'm curious to see where Derrick starts with this.
Here's what I'm gonna do, because to me, I feel like there isn't a bad acting scene in this movie. So we basically just be doing a read through of the script if I were to go through all.
Like I said, like your favorite moment, like something that would stick up the most. Like I said, don't get me wrong, this film you can pick apart.
Yeah, and this is going to tie back to kind of how the story goes. So one of the things that I think is so brilliant.
What's up, Kurt?
One of the things that I think is so brilliant about this film is not only does he really allow his actors to just be whoever they are, you get this strange introduction to Vito, right? Where Marlon Brando is doing something where you're just like, are you speaking? And they do jokes about it all the time where you're like, are you speaking with marshmallows in your mouth? Why are you talking like that? And you get that from everybody, just right out of the gate. Everybody has this very clear identity where they have all adopted a specific type of speech, a specific type of attitude, whatever, whatever it is. Even your side characters, like even these people that show up. Well, I mean, you get the whole. Why am I blanking on his name? The actor that asks him, and then Vito Corleone slaps him.
Yeah. I don't mention Johnny Fontana. Which is going to be Al Martino.
There you go.
Even him who gets the briefest of moments, they're whispers, right?
Yep.
Even him gets to do this over the top Hollywood actor, kind of a parody of what we all think it is. And so there's a lot to be attributed to the talent of each of those people to be able to say, no, these are the conscious choices that I want to make. And then credit to the director for being like, yeah, do it. I don't care. Like, it's fine. And then you get all the way into the story, and the lack of direct character exposition is what allows all of these people to stand on their own, right? Because there is no character in this movie that is there to be an exposition dump. It doesn't exist. And even something like The Goodfellas, as great as that movie is, and it is easily one of my favorite mafia movies of all time, it has that. There are characters in that movie that exist only to give you exposition. That's it. And you do not have that in The Godfather. Every single person exists in a lived-in world, so you can just watch them act. You don't have to worry about them trying to explain the story.
Very excellent.
And it's amazing. And one of my favorite, and I'll stop here, but one of my favorite examples of that is in that wedding scene when I think it's the uncle or whatever it is, and he gets up on the bandstand and he's all drunk and he's like just demanding. And you are watching this movie. We've been watching this wedding for 20 minutes already. We have no idea who this guy is. We have no idea why he's able to just drunkenly jump on the stage and try to get him to play an Italian classic. And you're just like, what is happening here? But the story never tries to force you to explain it. So now you just have to accept that, yeah, this guy's a drunk uncle and he's trying to take over the wedding, and someone needs to
everyone has that drunk uncle.
And it's just such a great a compliment to how good everybody is in this movie, where you just take this random scene that is out of context in the movie. It's already out of context. We have no idea what's going on. And it's able to just elevate it to be like, yeah, I have a drunk uncle too. This actually makes a lot of sense.
Well, this movie elevated so many people. Like, if you look at the character Luca Brasi, like the Don's right-hand man, he's an actual mobster. He was a real mobster. He was a real enforcer. He was getting older and wanted to get and go legit. So what did he want to do? He saw this as his opportunity as an acting scene. So like that scene where he's repeating like, Don Corleone, may your first child be a masculine. That was an actual thing he was doing because he was so nervous. And Francis Ford Coppola's like,
man, just to keep us on time here. Just on that same note that you're actually bringing up here, in regards to the acting concept. To me, the wedding always comes up. I don't care what's going on, whether it's, fighting scenes, whether it's, a half of families getting just off because Godfather said so, whether it's the classic horsehead scene, you name it. For some odd reason, the scene between Marlon Brando and Al Martino, Johnny Fontana, like you mentioned there, that brief moment meant a lot to me. And just the fact that it was quiet, you saw, you get a heads up from, James Caan, the concept that heads up for, what's his name? I'm trying to think of who he plays. Let me see if I can find up his name.
God bless James Caan in that movie.
It's like,
God,
I know, right?
God, just it's such a revelation of a character.
But see, in regards to that, you have this concept of, a storytelling, understanding that Johnny Fontana's coming in here and he constantly comes back to beg for money. And at first you think, Corleone is just looking at him and accepting him for what he is, because he's quiet, he's there. But the whole time Fontana's like staring down at his feet, ashamed. And you're trying to figure out, what is it about, Corleone that Fontana's like scared of right now? What is the big deal? And just before he exits, he's like, what are you doing? You just seem like, what are you doing? Get out of there. Get out of this headspace. And just that slight octave higher with that same voice seemed to rock Fontana to his core. Like, oh, got it. You'll take care of me. That's all I needed to do.
It's an Italian thing. It's very much an Italian thing, because when you're raised as, so the reason, like, the reason why Brazzi is always like a masculine child, because in Italian culture, it's always the son. Like me and my brother, we're the last two. No one else had boys. Everyone else in our family had girls. Me and my brother are the last boys. So it's very much of the mindset of, no, you're the man. Get your stuff together. You're supposed to be head of this household. Get your act in line.
Yeah.
What the hell are you doing?
Yeah,
exactly.
I think to your point, man, I think that is just another incredible example of how much storytelling and how much acting is happening in this all throughout the film. But this brief scene that really doesn't need to be there. It's not like integral to the story, but it
not even remotely.
It tells you
exactly
so much about who Vito is, who Johnny is,
whether you like it or not.
It doesn't. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
You're just given so much information in such a small period of time without them even telling you what is actually going on, and that's brilliant storytelling paired with amazing acting, and you just don't see that. You just don't. It's just so
exactly.
good.
It just
name the last movie in like 20 years.
Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry. We got some time here. We got like about 9 more minutes here. I'm sorry. I don't mean to cut off on this concept wise. We'll go into as well. But going into this, like, cutting off the concept we're looking at now, storytelling, fantastic. We touched base slightly into the actors and so forth. Just in regards to the directing, because I know that given that we didn't touch base specifically on directing, but we've also mentioned how much this movie is a foundation to previous mobster movies around there being an obnoxious growth in the mafia film industry, the money it makes for it and so forth as well. On that note, one of the other rare moments I see, every one of us here have 4 popcorn buckets out of 5 for this particular film. That being said, what we've discussed today, and and if we keep this short, because we got about 9 minutes here. What we can discuss today: would you keep it at a 4, or would you go higher, lower, and why? Let's go ahead and start with you, Rob.
I think I would keep it at 4, and that is because there are always moments to be fixed, right? There are certain characters you could obviously dial back. There are certain characters you could have dialed in.
Yeah.
But this is about as close to a perfect film as American cinema's ever seen. Like, you could ask anyone, hey, pick out, like, even Derrick and I before this, what do you pick out of this? What is a bad scene? Like, there's very few and far between. Like, one could argue the meeting of the families and how that dialed out. You could have played out different bits here and there just a little bit better. You could have played out like just certain minutia parts, but it's so minutia that it's maybe like a handful of things. Otherwise, it's a perfect film. You could put this on a Sunday morning. You could put this on at a Tuesday afternoon. It plays good no matter when you play it or how you play it. It is a perfect film. It's only just these minutia things that only people like us are like, well, we could have done this a little bit better. Well, we could have done this a little better, because we're always chasing the dragon of the perfect film.
Exactly. Now, Derrick, what would you think, my friend, with your rating now, would be higher or lower, and if so, for whatever reason, why?
So I would probably stick with it. I have a hard time giving things a perfect score. I mean, I know we don't do points because you can't do like half a bucket of popcorn, but I know. But I would absolutely, if I was really pressed, and we're looking at closer to like a 4.5, 4.7. There's very little that I would criticize this film for.
Yeah, no, totally.
If we keep it at a 4 out of 5, I do think the only misgivings would be that, like us, I feel like we're kind of film aficionados, so we can recognize the great things that The Godfather does. I think now it's hard for someone, and I do the same thing with like Star Wars and Citizen Kane and all these movies that are considered the greatest of all time. I think what ends up happening is over time, they don't necessarily lose any of their skills, but when you watch something like Goodfellas and all of these movies that take all of those things that we all love, that The Godfather started, they do things, they take those concepts and they make them more accessible. It's almost like they update them in ways that allow people to be like, and I've heard this, but some people feel that The Goodfellas is better than Godfather. I've heard the debate too. Yep. I don't necessarily agree, but I understand how you can get there. And for me, as long as you recognize that you wouldn't have Goodfellas without Godfather, it's fine if you want to rate them that way.
And I've had the same argument
you
over people saying The Sopranos are better than Goodfellas. It's on me. I'm a firmly Godfather and Goodfellas guy.
Yeah. But yeah, I think 4 out of 5. I think 4 out of 5 is a pretty good one. I think if you take all the misgivings that people might have, it is an undeniably influential film that is still to this day being copied and kind of taking things that I don't think people even knew that you can do in Western cinema, and you would not have any of those things even outside of the genre. You wouldn't have them without The Godfather. So yeah.
Definitely. I have to agree with both of you guys. I'm stuck in the crossroads right now. For the first time in a long time, I really want to rate a film 5 out of 5. The reason why I say this is that my whole life I called this film like a 3.5 out of 5 because I saw it as a young kid, didn't know what's going on. But every time I get reintroduced to this dang film, I always get reintroduced to something I like more and more about it. And maybe it's just because I'm getting older. Maybe it's because there's some things I'm more appreciated as a storyteller or writer or just all appreciative person of film. But I really want to call it. I think something like Rotten Tomatoes has it at a 98%. I mean, like you got comments associated with it. I want to go back to the comment section over here. Q mentions an excellent point here. He goes into talking about, let's see here. Brando was perfect as well in the movie, won a crap load of Oscars. That's an excellent point. I mean, he was like a
funny
staple,
considering
on
Paramount wanted to
concept.
fire him like 25% into the way of the movie. Like it literally took Francis Ford Coppola giving him cotton to put in his mouth and telling him, "Hey, read your lines like this." In order for them to, this is what you're trying to accomplish. Okay, go ahead.
Totally. Now, along with that too, as well, you do actually have, like I said, it just there's so many associations with this film, and I'm for the first time I'm going to go on record say I'm going to give it 5 out of 5. I'm going to go ahead and change it. This is the only film I actually have done this for. I will say this because I love films like The Matrix. Don't hate. There's a lot of debate on that. And there's the things that I will go and debate in as well. But I'm going to go ahead and say when it comes to be 5 out of 5 going in there. Things may change when I see it later on. We won't go into the other forms of The Godfathers, things I appreciate about those, but I think they should definitely change. But
there's only part 1 and part 2. That's it.
Real quick, to be fair, you mentioned The Matrix, and The Matrix borrows a lot from The Godfather in the sense that it does the exact same thing. It drops you into an existing world that it takes you 30 minutes until Morpheus sits you down in a blank white chair and explains the movie to you, because up until that point, you cannot categorically say that you have any idea what the hell is going on.
Exactly. It's the trails is fantastic. But before we run out of time, I want to go ahead and make sure I give you guys a shout out here. So for the record, guys, can you please let us know where we can find your content? If you have any projects going on, please go ahead and give a shout out. Rob, please start off, my friend.
I've been working alongside Nerdbot and a lot of the other groups within Southern California. You can follow me on Instagram, producer_Rob. I'm always on different podcasts, doing different stuff, just kind of rambling about all my nerdiness, all my obsessions.
Fantastic. And Derrick, where we can find you, my friend?
Yeah, so you guys can you can find me at DRock Comedy. That's DROK Comedy. You can find it on Instagram and Twitter, and then you can just look at my name on Facebook. I'm on Facebook all the time, but and then just follow me on Nerdbot. I do film reviews for them. Do a ton of writing. I just got finished with 2 festivals, so Sundance and South by Southwest. So I've got about.
Dude, that sounds fun.
Dude, it is, but it is exhausting.
I gauge my movies on how Derrick approves of them.
I've got about 60 films backlogged that I will have to review at some point this year that are just all in like little notes. So definitely check those out. I try to review pretty much anything that comes out and on streaming and in the theaters. And then definitely check us out on the Jack and Ball Nerd Show. I'm the co-host for that. We have tons of stuff. We have Cineblokes, where we're British people that review movies. We have The Rookery, where we do episodes of Gargoyles. We finished season 1. We're going to start season 2 here in a little bit. So tons of stuff up there. So definitely check that out. You can check that out at the jackandballnerdshow.com.
Heck yeah, man. Well, guys, my name is Alejandro Cowie, or Alex Cowie. You can find me at IAMCOWIE. I am Cowie on Instagram, or Daily Shenanigans on Nom Talk Network for our Instagram account. Now, also remember, you can also listen to it, this whole thing, this Nom Watch review, 2 days later on Google Podcast, Breaker, Spotify, or where you can get your podcasts. Please subscribe and review. It will help us a lot. Once again, we appreciate you guys visiting us. Love, peace, chicken grease. We'll always appreciate the support, and we hope to see you next time. You guys have a next show. Ooh.
Oh my God.
Come on. Help me out here. I'm struggling. Producer Steph, help me. I'm just looking through. Oh my God. Okay, we're talking about the Power Ranger movie Tuesday. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're seeing live me falling apart while I try to figure out what's next. So on that
It's okay.
note,
I'll
we will
hug
see
you.
next
I'll keep you
Tuesday.
together.
Yes, we will fall together. Once again, guys, love, peace, chicken grease. Thank you for joining us, and join us next time. Bye.